So welcome, Katz. I'm so grateful for your visionary leadership, your authenticity, and your brilliance. I'm excited about this conversation. And as always, we begin things by acknowledging our creator, by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks to all our ancestors. We give thanks to all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we share, build, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Kat, please share with our listeners and viewers a bit about your remarkable work and your background.
Hi, Victor. I'm so excited to be here. So humbled to be invited. I'm tuning in from Mohican System, that's colonially known as Calgary, Alberta. And I work for the Youth Harbor, a project of the Foundation for Environmental Stewardship. And we are really passionate about empowering the leaders that we have today, young people today, now, by pooling philanthropic funds and making sure that they're well-resourced, not just well-resourced, but meaningfully resourced to actually sustain and scale their work. People are so quick to, slap young people on their logos, on their marketing campaigns. But when it comes to brass tacks about how we actually support them, the systems have not been able to meet youth where they're at. So we're trying to flip philanthropy in over its head and really say, if we are really passionate about systems change, the way to do it is to put decisions when it comes to money, when it comes to our futures, in the hands of youth. And that's what we do at the Youth Harbor. We've dispersed $650,000 since 2021. We've been able to leverage an additional $2.12 million, supporting young people to scale and sustain their work even more. And we're hoping to only grow and share the blessings from here.
That's truly remarkable. I wish my daughters were here to hear this inspiring work. I'm telling you, it's such a challenging time on the planet in so many regions around so many issues. And to see someone like yourself doing this work and doing it with clear vocation, clear passion, commitments, and authenticity, it is truly remarkable. So I thank you for all that you do for so many.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and you too.
Yes. And my next question is, what inspires you most about your work?
Oh my goodness. I knew this question was coming, and I think I think a lot of times people try to point to one inspirational moment, one catalytic event. But I think it's, for me, more so a it's a stepping stone. So I think I kind of want to start off with just kind of a story to begin with, is that when I first worked for FES, we did this project called the 3% Project. And in one school that I was working in Duck Lake, there was some really amazing young people that just wanted to create an Indigenous-led project where they're really featuring Indigenous peoples and their market in terms of stewardship. And basically, these Indigenous young people that were trying to work within this market, they were met with a lot of resistance from the community, from the settler community, that didn't believe in the value of bringing some things together. And I remember I was on this Zoom call, and, this person in front of me was just crying. And it felt so hopeless in a way for them. It felt as if, this whole community was just against them, whether it was the mayor, whether it was the city council, maybe it was the market themselves. And then I remember we were just crying in grief with them about, how difficult it was to actually do this work as a young person, to be taken seriously, to get the money, and to get community buy-in. And as we're grieving together, I remember there was this one teacher, and he just hung up the call. And then he called me later, and then he said, this is why we don't try to support young people too much, because it gives them too much hope. And then he said, moving forward, we shouldn't have this interaction anymore. And I think it's the biggest regret of my career, of not, enabling that interaction to go further. Because in my head, I thought to myself, is this all that I can do? I'm promising that I'm going to be able to scale work, support work, but this young person I'm trying to support is being met with resistance and a lack of resources. And I think, that was a moment among many where it really inspired me and pushed me to realize if I want to make a change, yes, we do these things in a community and community level, but there is something to be said about how do we actually make sure that the community and the institutions are equipped to support these young people so that these young people can thrive and sustain and scale their initiatives. And then what continues to get me motivated, this is me, the stepping stones of motivation, is just the amazing young people that you encounter through this work that are just so passionate and so motivated, and that just deserve to have their work amplified. And then you see what changes when you're actually able to fund the work. A lot of times young people, they try to fund their work. They do this with like $0 in their back pocket. But what really inspires me is like when we're actually able to give those grants, those seed grants, and help them scale their work, just, the amount of care that they're able to give themselves and the amount of impact that they're able to have in their community, and to see them do it and not feel so burnt out, I think that itself is a huge inspiration.
Absolutely. So well said. And I appreciate the storytelling and the narrative as griots. It's so important to share those narratives. And I really feel like where the world is at right now, the radical and revolutionary innovation, imagination required can only come from young people. As a husband and father of four, I see the brilliance in my children. And I recognize as a 40-year-old man that I have an obligation to leave this planet better than when I arrived. So I feel like the way we honor and listen, hear, see, and value and young people's voices can't be performative. It can't be the veneer of representation. It can't be virtue signaling. It has to be about bold budgets and bold commitments that are actually creating, as you said, those environments of safety, brave and courageous spaces where if we're grieving, we're grieving. If we're learning, we're learning. If we're building, we're building. But allowing those emotions to be expressed, I think is remarkable. So once again, I give thanks for your leadership. So my next question is, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work, and how are you and your team working to overcome some of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think about it just at large. I mean, it's always, we're a youth-led organization ourselves. So, we're a youth-led organization in the sense that, being consistently undermined, spoken down to, and also underestimated, I think is a huge component of like what we're dealing with right now, especially with the young community. Funders are so quick to fund the policy work, the inside games, the really institutional jargon-free filled type of initiatives, and there's a place for that, but see where it's taken us so far. Young people are at the helm of every social justice movement. If we look at what has been done historically, whether it was like the strikes at Tiananmen Square, the People Power movement, the Singing Revolution, so the civil rights movement, strikes against Black Matters, Fridays for Future, it has been young people that have been able to shift the political will. And it's so condescending to say that there's not a place for young people in this movement, and therefore we will not fund it. And I think when it comes to brass tacks, we can say the problem is money. Yes, the problem is money because our movement itself is critically under-resourced and critically underfunded. I would say, what the real root cause of it is this constant undervaluing and underestimation of young people, and treating young people as becomings, like we're not worthy of this money, we're not worthy of this support yet, rather than beings in and of ourselves with a real stake when it comes to the futures that we're trying to change within the social impact system.
I couldn't agree more. And once again, I applaud you for one, speaking truth to power and making sure that young people are valued, because the performance of nature in many of these ecosystems and networks has to be called in and called out. And I think you do it with such grace and compassion and a remarkable leadership. So once again, thank you. My next question is, do you have a set of key priorities right now in terms of your work?
Key priorities. We're raising this pooled fund. I think we can say all the nice things and be like, we want to empower youth, but like what it comes down to is flipping philanthropy in its head and say, if you care about young people, empower them to make the decisions about money and allow young people to get access to that money through unrestricted and bold funding. I think the social impact sector, as great as it is, one of the key critiques of it is that we spend so much time developing these metrics that ultimately are so difficult to even like measure within a 1-year time frame, we need to switch philanthropy in and of its head and actually empower the young communities that are actually in proximity to the problem. And young people, as we know, are going to feel the greatest impacts of the climate crisis. So let's fund them to drive the solutions as we are most proximate to the problem. So we're just building up our pooled fund so we can re-grant to more folks. Yes, we've dispersed around $650,000 since 2021, but we get over in each cycle over $1.8 million of requests. And none of these organizations deserve less or more. It's about, always us negotiating about like, okay, who may need it more? How can we do this strategically? But when it comes down to it, we just need more resources in the movement. And the best way to do this from a philanthropic landscape is to give to young organizations, whether it's through FES or these organizations directly, and really amplifying their work as well.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And I think to decolonize philanthropy, we have to look at those features of control and compliance. And the fact that a lot of it boils down to control and compliance as opposed to trust-based models and frameworks that actually center humanity and censoring, I wouldn't say our most vulnerable, because I don't want to say that young people are most vulnerable, but I think are most innovative. This is our most, like in Canada, youth are our most innovative voice. And if we don't find ways and means to not, I don't even want to use the word empower, but have young people dictate the terms in terms of how they want to be supported, funded, empowered, engaged, we're going backwards. Youth development is not a new thing, but the amounts of leadership that we're seeing and the precision in terms of the demand side of capital, I think almost behooves the supply side of capital to do things very differently. So once again, I applaud you for being so seasoned and brilliant in terms of your approach and your strategy, and being able to deploy physical, like real capital, real impact, real change, and having the data. See data as a love language. Being able to say, we have this amount in terms of requests, but this is all we can fulfill. Because a lot of times when you look at the demand side of capital, there is this investment readiness or investment worthiness concept. But what about the supply side? Is there an allocation readiness? Allocation, like how do we look at and rank the allocators? You know what I mean? In terms of how they do the work. So I couldn't agree more. And once again, I appreciate your leadership. So my next question is, how do you feel about the future of youth and social impact and social innovation in Canada? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? How do you feel about it?
I am optimistic because of the fact that no matter whether young people are given the funding to do so or not, we are going to do the work. And I think, the money is just one aspect that can really empower and enable young folks to do the work and be able to access care at the same time. But what I see with the future of social innovation and social impact work in Canada is a lot of strategy and this realization that in the grassroots level, in the community level, people are really investing in building the political and social infrastructure to be able to sustain their work. And I think it's by design that our current institutional systems, they like to position youth-led and grassroots work as kind of scrappy and stupid, but I think that's by design because they're afraid. They're afraid to admit that what's happening at the grassroots level, what's happening at the community level is refined. It's strategic. It is things that are done in proximity, and we use proximity as a way to perform our own due diligence to see if a solution is viable. And that's actually dangerous to institutions that especially want to uphold the current systems of power. And I think right now we're at a critical moment. Like, yes, COVID, had an impact on the grassroots community level work, but we're beyond recovering now. There's this catalytic effect of now we're really mobilizing the political will, the societal attitudes. We're enabling the cultural shifts that will allow, our sector to be able to deploy these solutions. They're coming, and I'm very optimistic that, people are just going to hop on board as this just becomes more prevalent in our daily lives.
Ashe, ashe, ashe. So what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you and your colleagues?
Oh my goodness, so many goals. We would love, so right now we're working on work to look into how much money is going to climate philanthropy within Canada. And our goal is to basically say, the proportion of money that's going to climate philanthropy that's being dispersed within climate philanthropy needs to be proportional to the amount of young people that are in this space. Because if we're truly going to be honest about, empowering young people, we need to say the proportion of young people in the world need to be getting a piece of that pie. only 0.76% of funding right now internationally goes to climate justice initiatives. We're trying to get that to the percentage point of how many people are actually in Canada. And we're going to be doing fundraising work on that. We're doing our research on that. And we're going to be setting a goal sometime next year and announcing our big strategic plan of this giant pool that we're going to be building on until 2030.
Congratulations. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So this is my second last question. It's a personal question. It's your 90th birthday, friends and family around. What do you want folks to be saying about CAD?
About CAD. Oh, wow. Maybe I need to reflect more on my long-term horizons, but you know, we can talk about impact and all these things, but I think at the end of the day, what I would love people to say is that she's peaceful. I think we can talk about, she's doing a lot of work, but I think what it comes down to is like, if there is peace within you, that means the impact has been done. We've reached it. We've done it. We're able to live into this full embodiment of our souls and ourselves. And if I can like come to my 90th birthday and she's peaceful, she's happy with her life, and she, honors other people with grace and mercy, then I think that's a really fruitful and beautiful life to have lived.
That's actually my favorite response to that question. And we've asked that over 100 times on our YouTube channel thus far. So thank you.
Oh.
So my last question, do you have any calls to action or closing thoughts for our listeners and viewers?
I mean, fund youth, give money to youth, support youth, provide care to youth, and meet young people where they're at. Don't, I think a lot of times we are so excited to tokenize youth, and because we get really excited about like enabling youth, and I think there's some really well-intentioned people there that want to, bring youth in, but I think we also need to ask the question, are we prepared to accept youth? Are we prepared to support them in the way that they need to be supported? That's by, developing designs and designing systems that will enable youth action to actually happen, providing grace to young people to learn on the way, and also providing the care through finance and support to make sure that they can be sustained in this movement over time.
Asheo. And we'll close the way we began this interview by acknowledging our creator, acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we share, build, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, Kat.